Transitioning to college football, this is the big announcement, the big hammer that was just dropped about 35 minutes before I was set to go on air this morning. Texas and Oklahoma have officially announced their plans to leave the Big 12 conference to go formally join the Southeastern Conference, the SEC. They dropped the hammer this morning. Obviously, there were rumblings within the past couple of days about them expressing interest in joining the SEC. The Big 12 committee and executives tried talking to the presidents of Texas and Oklahoma to try and dissuade them from joining the SEC. They approached them with this new proposal for a larger cut in the revenue that would be given and distributed to Texas and Oklahoma. And obviously, this comes on the heels of the Big 12's popularity plummeting and on the heels of the college football playoff likely to be expanding, the college football playoff expansion pretty much inevitable in the future. But overall, I think that this is terrible for college football. I actually think that this is an awful thing for college football for a bevy of reasons. First of all, the Big 12 conference is absolutely going to dissolve now. There will be no Big 12 conference. They will cease to exist. You have the two bell cows of the conference, Texas and Oklahoma, and you now remove them from the conference. They were keeping the conference afloat and barely afloat as is. Now you're hoping that Oklahoma State, Kansas State, West Virginia, Baylor, Texas Tech, some non-Power 5 teams, if you bring in a Cincinnati or BYU or a Houston, to still hold up this conference, it's not going to happen. They will cease to exist. And so now you're no longer looking at a Power 5, you're looking at a Power 4, because all of the teams, all the remaining teams are going to be poached and likely poached by other rival conferences. So that's first of all. So the Big 12 in the next couple of years, and by the way, they declined their decision to renew their TV rights. It expires in 2025. So 2025, after the 2025 season, is when this would take into effect. So for a couple years, yes, you'll still have the rivalries: Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas, Texas Tech. But now, after 2025, the Big 12 will absolutely dissolve. It will cease to exist. That's number one. Number two, to me, this is just a desperate ploy to make some money. It's a desperate money grab move by, to be honest, both of these teams. Now, I will preface my comments by saying that I think more of the backlash and the vitriol should be aimed, and really the disappointment should be aimed in the direction of Texas more so than Oklahoma. Because Oklahoma has proven over the past several years that this is a legitimate university in college football. This is a program that has established itself as one of the premier, one of the elite programs in college football. But the thing is, when you look at the distribution of revenue among the Power 5 conferences, last year, the Big 10 had the most amount of revenue, making $780 million. The SEC followed right behind them at $721 million. You had the Pac-12 coming in at number 3 with $530 million. The ACC finished ahead of the Big 12 with $455 million. And last place among the Power 5 conferences when it came to revenue was the Big 12, finishing with $430 million. And the reason is because of the TV contracts. The Big 12 is the only conference in college football that doesn't have their own lone individual network. There's a Big 10 network, there's an SEC network, there's a Pac-12 network, there's an ACC network. The Longhorns network for Texas, that's the only individual network that exists within the Big 12, is Texas's individual network that only covers Texas football, exclusively Texas athletics and Texas football. So for these teams, they understand, hey, if we join the SEC, bigger revenue, more revenue means there's going to be a greater cut for us. But to be honest, while that's true, and I understand that, there's an easy solution to this. If you're the Big 12, what you should have done was simply gone out and created a Big 12 network. I don't really understand the reticence to do it. I didn't understand the hesitancy and the patient approach that they employed when it came to this, because, yeah, you're the last ones to be establishing anything. And so no wonder these two teams are wanting to leave. But that doesn't mean that I think it's good for college football. That's number two. Number three is, again, Texas is trying to position, and Oklahoma, they're trying to position themselves for this upcoming TV deal that's going to be extremely lucrative in the next couple of years, where I believe could be over $1 billion that is being invested in these other conferences, in these networks, especially the SEC, with the clout that they have and the fact that they already brought in 700. They already had $721 million in revenue last year. You add Texas and Oklahoma, those numbers are going to spike up, and so each team would get a greater slice of the pie. So Texas and Oklahoma is going to make more money off the TV rights deal that's going to be looming in the next couple of years. The other thing is, and this is kind of the fourth reason why I actually don't think that this is good for college football, is that if the logic and the rationale for Texas and Oklahoma is, hey, the SEC provides and offers more exposure, if that's truly what it comes down to, is exposure, well, it could be exposure. It could also be exposing their biggest flaws and their deficiencies and their weaknesses. Because when you look at Texas and Oklahoma, again, yes, Oklahoma, they've always been an elite program. They've made the college football playoff 4 times since its inception in 2014, which is extremely, extremely impressive. And so they're an elite program. But Texas, the last time that they made a BCS title game or were even really in position to be contending for one was in 2009 when they won the BCS title game. That's the last time they won the Big 12, was in 2009. They obviously won the BCS national championship in 2005 with Mack Brown as the head coach and Vince Young over USC in the Rose Bowl. They won 41-38. We all remember that iconic 4th and 8 run from Vince Young to upset Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart. That team went 13-0, one of the greatest national title games in college football history. But you think that a team like Texas is going to win multiple games and achieve and attain a lot of success in an SEC conference when they can't even win the Big 12? Again, they haven't won the Big 12 since 2009. That's the last time Texas won the Big 12. So if anything, now you're playing against Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Georgia, Florida, Texas A&M. To me, that's going to actually expose. Yes, there'll be more exposure technically because you might be on national television a little bit more, but it also may highlight the inherent flaws within the program that haven't been discussed enough. And it may actually extract and divulge just more negative information about the team, to be honest. So that's number 4. Because again, you need what do we reward in college football? College football rewards programs that have sustained levels of success, sustained levels of achieving wins, of winning. This is a meritocracy in college football to a degree. Obviously, there are a lot of smaller non-Power 5 programs that have sustained winning. And so meritocracy would suggest that they would be considered and garner more consideration. But the reality is, why does Alabama get the benefit of the doubt? Well, they've won so many national championships. Why does Oklahoma keep getting inserted in? Well, they've held their own against the SEC. They've dominated the Big 12. Why does Ohio State keep getting the benefit of the doubt? Well, because they've got a program that's won multiple NCAA titles. They've won multiple national titles. They're universally respected. Why is the SEC garner so much consideration and hold so much power? They wield so much power. is because they've showed dominance in college football for so many years. So the thing is, when we look at the college football's inevitable expansion to at least a 12-team league, Texas and Oklahoma are saying, well, we'd like to better position ourselves in a conference that gets rewarded more given the gauntlet of a schedule. And while that logic makes sense, and they certainly believe that a 3-loss Texas or Oklahoma team, or maybe even a 4-loss team, would outbid a 1-loss Big 12 team, or a 1-loss or 2-loss Pac-12 or Big 10 or ACC or Big 12 team. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case. And so you're going to absolutely dissolve all the rivalries that have existed. And obviously, not that they care, but you're going to sour and embitter the relationship that you have with the other schools in the Big 12 conference. Oklahoma State will be ticked off, Kansas State, Kansas, Texas Tech, Baylor, every single school. Again, not that they care, Texas and Oklahoma, they care about the bottom line. And the bottom line is they're more concerned about their bottom line than the bottom lines of the other teams. But this is the overarching thing. I hate hearing the argument, oh, well, listen, Texas and Oklahoma, this is going to help us with recruiting. Well, no, it's not. The reality is Texas, for example, has already had, over the last 10 years, they've averaged the 7th best recruiting class in college football. 2018 and 2019, Texas has had a top 3 recruiting class in college football. Oklahoma consistently has a top 10, top 5 recruiting class in college football. This isn't about a dearth of talent. This isn't about not having enough talent. This could be as simple as we need to hold the players and, more importantly, the coaches more accountable. This is about the front office and the athletic directors of Texas and Oklahoma making better hiring decisions. If you want a better team, get a better coach. I hate hearing this argument that, well, Texas and Oklahoma, they don't have enough. Being in the SEC, they will widen the pool. They'll broaden the pool of recruits. Their brands are big enough as is, where recruiting isn't an issue. You have the talent. Can you execute? Can you deliver? Oklahoma has proven that they can, which is why, again, they've got a little bit more to stand on. They've got a stronger argument to jump to the SEC because they've got a tremendous amount of leverage, even though I still don't think they should. Texas, you've had a lot of talent. Make a better coaching hire that can bring the best out of their players. That's what it comes down to. Because the players and the coaches have to be held more accountable. It's not the SEC, the Big 10, the ACC, the Pac-12's fault that Texas, when in seasons they should be going 12-1, they finish 11-3, or they finish 10-4. You have to execute as a program, and that's, to be honest, it's not going to help their recruiting classes at all. So to me, I don't like this move. I think that it's a bit pitiful. I think that it's a money grab, and it could actually be detrimental to both of these programs. Do I think that ultimately they will make more money in the SEC? Yes. And that's true that if that's all they care about, which clearly it is, that's what the boosters care about, then I understand the decision from a financial standpoint. The finances don't add up to stay in the Big 12, but at the same time, when you look at a moral, when you look at a competitive standpoint, this just falls exceedingly short in all of those departments, to be honest, and is quite unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate that these programs had to sell themselves out, had to sell themselves short for some financial incentive. Because I don't think they're going to be better positioned to make the college football playoff in the future just because they're joining the SEC. What better positions you to attain success, to reach the college football playoff, is winning in your conference, is winning in your division, is taking care of the games that you're supposed to take care of. So I think that this is a bit of a cop-out, personally.